Hi, everyone. Many thanks to all of you who are connected and watching this session instead of having lunch, or actually maybe while having lunch. I'm R.Koetschet. I'm responsible for the private equity investments at Caisse et Dépôts, and it's my great pleasure to welcome Sophie, Prune, and Antoine to discuss about one topic, which is clearly one of the big challenges that our industry is currently facing, i.e. diversity. I suggest that we kick off with a brief introduction by everyone. Sophie, do you want to start?
Okay, thank you very much, Raphael. So I'm Sophie S.Château. I'm a partner at Dépôts France, and I'm a member of the board. I'm heading the investor relations at Dépôts France, and started my career first in M&A in London at UBS, and then I moved to private equity direct investment, small cap, mid cap, and to finish now in the investor relations at Dépôts France.
Thank you.
Me now, I guess. Okay. I'm Prune des Roches. I'm a partner at Andera partner in the infrastructure team. Have been working in infrastructure investment for 15 years. So it means that I've always conducted my professional life in male-dominated worlds that are infrastructure, investment, banking and finance in general. So I am well aware of the diversity issues that finance and private equity in particular are facing. Just one word about Andera, because we are in the introduction phase. One of the things I liked about Andera when I joined is that Andera is one of the GPs that care about diversity. We are not at parity yet, but Andera is fighting for it. We have a gender diversity committee in the company composed of men and women, who's there to change the culture on gender diversity, attract more women, and promote women without quotas. So this explains why I'm here today as well.
And last but not least, Antoine.
Thank you, Raphael. Antoine P.des, I'm a managing partner and chairman of Sofinnova Partners, which is a life science investor, investing from our Paris-based throughout Europe and the US. I've been with the firm 23, going on 24 years now. I joined in 97. I was at CDC before Caisse des Dépôts, and where Raphael is today, but in their direct investment part doing life science investing. And yes, I can give you my, hopefully later on in that panel, my perspective on diversity. We I think have really done something quite good at Sofinnova in that field. So I hope to share what we've learned in the process.
Pleasure. So a bit of housekeeping here. We will keep a few minutes towards the end of this session for questions. So don't hesitate to use the chat button at the bottom of the screen, and the moderator will actually ask them directly. So firstly, as an LP, I go through hundreds of funds presentations a year. And what is striking in a very consistent manner is the lack of diversity at every level in the very vast majority of those. So as an LP, I believe our duty is firstly to ask questions around that. And within CDC, the question around diversity is also addressed through our annual ESG questionnaire. And those are KPIs that we are tracking throughout the years. And it's rather obvious that there is a change in the mindset of some GPs around D&I, which has become increasingly in the spotlight. And that can be witnessed by the number of signatories of the ILPA D&I charter, and closer to us maybe from the France Invest one. Sophie, could you tell us where we are in terms of diversity in the French private equity landscape, and maybe how we compare to the other European countries and maybe the rest of the world?
Yes, one thing I didn't mention in the introduction is, in addition to my role at Dépôts France, I'm a founding member of Level 20 in France. So what is Level 20? Well, Level 20 was a UK initiative supported by a senior woman in private equity, named with a 20% to have female in senior positions. So the goal is really to have 20% in senior position. So given that, where are we today? There is a report released by BVCA and Level 20 in March 2021, saying that at European level, there is only today 10% of women being partners, which is not much. It's a bit better because 2 years ago, there were only 6%, but it's quite small. When you go down, there are two things. When you go down, I mean, the proportion of women in investment team is better because you have 20% at mid-level and today 1/3 at junior level. How France does compare to that? Let's say that we are a bit better because it's 15% at senior level and the proportion at junior and mid-level is, well, I would say the same as Europe. So it means that we have today quite an effort to do to achieve a bit more diversity in the investment team in private equity.
Also, many thanks. That's very insightful. Koen, could you maybe tell us, after all, why is D&I so important and how can we avoid any kind of diversity washing, according to you?
Yeah, the British say before you start a debate, start with a why. And when talking about diversity, I think it's really important to understand why it is so important, why it's key. Because when you ask the GP about diversity, a lot of them say that they try to recruit more women, but they cannot find enough female candidates. So why should we push for diversity in private equity if women are not interested in working there? I mean, why do we fight for it? Why do LPs bring diversity into their fund allocation criteria? My answer is because it is good for performance. I mean, research on diversity across industries show that companies with a greater diversity in leadership positions perform better than average. Why? Because women tend to take less financial risks than men, which is really important in investment, and because women bring a different point of view on things. So yesterday I found a quote from Christine Lagarde during a speech she made as the head of the International Monetary Fund, and I will read it to you. She says, "We need more diverse leadership in finance. First, greater diversity always sharpens thinking while reducing the potential for groupthink. And second, diversity also leads to more prudence and better decision-making. A higher rate of women in leadership position in financial institutions is associated with greater financial stability." So that's the first reason more women is linked to better performance. Second reason is because it's better for the team stability. When you focus on diversity, you create a more equitable and inclusive place to work, so you can attract better talent and you improve your retention rate. Moreover, women are considered to be more stable in their job. So improving the rate of women in a team is good for the team stability, which is also very important in investment. So that's the reason. Now to answer your question about the diversity washing, I mean, Andera Infra, the fund I'm working on, is an impact fund dedicated to green infrastructure. And one of the fundamental questions that we have on this sector is how to avoid greenwashing. So my answer to diversity is the same than the one I give on green infrastructure. Actions and figures can be measured more than words. So on our fund, we have put our money where our mouth is, meaning that the team is incentivized on reaching its environmental targets. And the same things could be done on diversity, because if we work on it, I don't see any reason why we could not see results in a few years' time.
The question of having incentives, directly linked to diversity is a pretty interesting one, and maybe one on which I don't know if Sophie or if Antoine, you want to say a word.
Well, look, we never had objectives ourselves. If you want me to tell you our story, which is a story that spans over 20 years. So, and I've been there 23 years. I will tell you, when I joined, our firm was pretty typical even of today, meaning that there were women, but they were mostly in support team. My co-managing partner and chief operating officer, Sonia, was there already many years before I was. And there was quite a lot of women in the support team, but we were in the front office, if that's the right term, in the investment team, we were all men. And by the way, we were, and I don't know if I can say that, but I will, we were all white, and we were all French for that matter. So talking about diversity has many different angles. On that front, we were not diverse from the front office today, and I'll talk about that maybe now or later as you want. We are 50-50. We are diverse from the investment team to the support team equally, and it has been. So to answer your question, we never sort of set ourselves a goal. Maybe we're the lucky ones because we're in the life sciences, and it happens that there's a lot more women in life sciences, I suspect, that in just purely the financial world. The people we recruit are PhDs and postdocs and physicians. So very much of a scientific background. So I think the pool that we were able to pull from probably was balanced by itself. But it's not just that. I think because there are biases beyond the pool that people will dip into. I think it's too easy to say women are not interested in finance. This is a sweeping statement that, to me, I mean, in my home, the one who actually does most of the finance is not me, if you see what I'm saying. So I think diversity, we live with diversity in our own personal lives. And why do we have what do we apply differently in our business life? It makes no sense. So, again, I will take the example of life sciences. One of the basic biological principle is what they call homeostasis. It's the balance. A cell has, it's a very complex set of elements. There's things going out and in, and it's all about the balance. So to put in a question about why, life is about balance. And if you don't create that balance in the environment in which you are, whether it's your personal life or, and balance can have different definitions, but you need to find that balance. So having a male-only team doesn't have the balance. I love the Christine Lagarde quote. I think it says a lot. And yeah, I think maybe I'll stop here, tell you a little bit more about that simple process without quotas, that we went from 100% male team to a 50-50. In fact, I think there's slightly more female in our support team now as well.
Yeah, because I mean, reaching parity in our industry is definitely a process, given the very low number of senior hires, and very rare GPs have actually gone through that process. And so we have the chance to have you with us today, Antoine, and I believe that perfect parity has been reached within Sofinnova. And yeah, I think everybody would be keen to hear more about how you've actually reached this 50-50 number.
And the funny thing is that we never set ourselves the goal. We started recruiting male and female, realizing, just as both Sophie and Prune were saying, that you get a better decision-making process. You're not thinking in one box. So I think, and this is a path where when you have this, then you want this, and the more you have this, the more you have female in leadership position as equal. We have also an equal partnership rule, which is another layer. If you're an equal partner, you know, male, female, you're an equal partner, you have equal decision making in investment and divestments, then it's a total logic. You know, that's the logic. You know, if you're equal partner, you know, my female partners are equal to me and vice versa. Therefore, and if you look at who we have hired afterwards in the more junior position, it was the same principle. It was never about female male. It was about how could we have all the other elements of diversity within diversity of background. I mean, diversity of experience, diversity male female is. I'm sorry to say, it became so obvious to us that it never was a problem to solve. It's been a gradual element to enrich the organization. It sounds maybe too good to be true, but that's the way, that's the path. It took time. And I think we you know, accelerating is necessary. You need to be able to measure and accelerate. I mean, having the KPIs forces the ones who are at the back of the queue to accelerate. I think the rest, when you get into the rhythm, you know, it's not a straining exercise. It should not be a straining exercise, according to me.
So unlike Sofinnova, most firms aren't there yet, and they seem to be struggling in that department. I think it was Prune who made the point, because, you know, when we as an LP, we ask GPs, you know, why don't you have more women in your investment team? The response that we systematically get is, we're trying to, but actually we don't, you know, receive enough application coming from female candidates. So Sophie, that is definitely an area that is being tackled by Level 20. And you were mentioning before that you had participated in the launch of the French chapter. I think it would be very interesting for everyone to hear you about the Level 20 outreach program, but also the mentorship program.
Yes, exactly. As Prune said before, we need action. So that's what we try to do, to adopt a pragmatic approach at Level 20 with two, I would say, two angles. First is outreach. Outreach meaning that we organize panels in different schools, business school, engineer school, just to make sure that private equity is known by the students, especially female students, because the first, I think, issue we have is that there are not enough girls that want, well, first now that want to go to finance, and especially in private equity, because they could be afraid. So what we have to deliver, and collectively, and when we do some panels, of course it's women but men also, is to tell her what is private equity, why do we enjoy what we are doing, and why they can find, I mean, a great career goal and satisfaction by doing that job. So we did that regularly. I mean, we had one this week with Sketch School. We had another one with HEC and ESCP 2 weeks ago, and this has been followed with great success. I mean, we had over 100 students at HEC ESCP Finance Club 2 weeks ago. So that's the first part. The other part is the mentorship program. And the mentorship program in France, I must say that we can be very proud of what we have been doing. We are now, this is really the second year, and we have over 40 mentors. And I thank Antoine, because Antoine, I mean, is one of the mentor. Mentor, again, it's men and women, and probably there are more men. They are definitely more men than women, so senior partners. And the goal is really to mentor young women that have been in private equity between, let's say, 5 to 7 years of experience. So not very junior ones, but really typically the ones that are now director. And they have, I mean, to make the move and the psychological condition to be able to be a partner. So it's really to support them, I mean, to grow in that, and by taking this leadership. And this is very important. I mean, after the UK, we are doing that with consulting firm. Russell Reynolds is helping us on that, and they are doing that pro bono, like everybody. So it's very serious that we really spend time to match the peer, the mentor, and the mentee to make sure that there is a real dialogue between the two. We follow up regularly with well, this year is a bit specific, but usually we have a breakfast with mentees only to have their feedback. Same thing with the mentors, just to make sure that this is doing well. And I think it brings a lot, to the mentors and also to the mentee.
And so, Antoine, the obvious question is for you. Could you share your experience as a mentor on this session?
So first of all, I have not been a mentor for a long time, and just for my mentee went off on maternity leave. I say this because I think this is sort of the elephant in the room. Often people say, how does this impact female members of the team? And I'm back in touch with her, and I have a call with her very soon, and I'm going to meet with her again. But I am surprised in a way at indeed some of the questions that my mentee, but also I know that one of the female members of our team, a principal in our team, is a mentee with a mentor on the other side, and I've had a chat with her as well. So I've got two examples to relate to, and in both cases, I have the impression that a lot of the young women in our teams are never put the fact that they were female in front. In fact, they have just went ahead and always never wanted to put their sex, in front of other people as a reason to hire them or anything. So that's what I see from most of the female members that are younger female members in our team, but also outside. While here now, I have the impression that they understand the importance of showing to the world that yes, they've been hired for their competence. They happen to be female in our organization, and they have a role in addition to the role that they're playing. They do have a role as a member of the female community to show to the others that it's an industry that actually is very fitting to female members of that industry for a number of reasons that I think Prune or Sophie you mentioned. This is a very long-term industry. People are here for the longer term. In general, as you said, female tend to stay longer in organization. They're more, they tend to stay longer in the organization. We're talking about the long-term outcome of companies. So there's many reasons why female would do very well in an organization, but there's biases even probably from the female community that this is not an industry for them. And therefore, as being for all these mentees and people that are the younger people, but they are more, younger people even to come to this organization, it's really important that they they show that this is a model that others can follow. So in a way, putting the hat of I'm a woman in private equity is important. And with the people that I've spoken to, they didn't feel they wanted to hide it in a way, okay? Because they didn't want this to be seen as I'm promoting myself as a woman. Nothing to do with this, but you have a role, probably particularly with the female community, including the students and all the people that Sophie is going to see in the various business schools to explain to them that there's a path here that they should follow.
Yeah, thank you. No, thank you. That's super interesting. And Prune, so we mentioned outreach, we mentioned the mentorship program. What else should we do? What else should we put in place? Are we talking interview prep for minorities, unconscious bias training, inclusivity service? What could we do?
But there are several things to do. I mean, what you mentioned, unconscious bias training, it's interesting because it helps people being very conscious of the role of their education in their perception of the world. You mentioned the surveys, which is interesting, even though it is probably not fully reliable because people answer in a more virtuous way than they really are in the end. The things to do, I mean, to answer that question, I've called several people. Several people who have been active on the subject for long years. I've called the members of the Andera Diversity Committee, and among what I've heard, I've selected 6 ideas that I will share with you because I think they're worth it. The first one, I mean, the first one has been mentioned already. It's been covered, but I would like to say a few words about it. It's the coaching in general and the mentoring programs. I think it's really key because if the proportion of women is so low in leadership position, it's not because they are less talented, of course, than men. It's partly due to the fact that they don't dare. You've probably heard the theory saying that a woman will apply for a position only if she has 130% of the required skills, when a man only needs to have 80% of the required skills to feel legitimate. So we've heard that, but it's exactly the same when talking about asking for promotion. The women are shyer asking for a promotion. Why? Because they simply don't dare. So I think the mentoring and the coaching for these women is really important. Second idea, which is actually in the same vein, is internal women to women discussion sessions to be put in place. I know that a lot of people hate it, but I believe it really helps a lot of women to freely expose their feelings and diversity matters. And we have such sessions at Andera, and believe me, it is very positive. Third idea, I have 6, so it won't be too long, don't worry. Third idea, it's the one that Sophie is doing every day. It's really working on the private equity attractiveness, because as you said, if the proportion of female is so low, it's not due to a lack of interest, but it's due to centuries of male domination in these sectors, meaning that applying to positions in financial industries means getting out of cultural habits, which requires to dare again. You were talking, Sophie, about HEC. At HEC, I've heard that you have 55% of the students are women. But when you look at the finance schools, the percentage of women decreases to 20%. And this is the unconscious way of history. So this is really important, what Level 20 is doing. And Andera is doing the same, is partnership, developing partnership with university. And I really believe it's a clever way to improve things on the long term. Sorry, diversity, a child in the room. Sorry, get it. So working, so fourth idea is really to, so fourth idea is something that I've heard, which is quite new. It's about successful, give me a second, sorry.
No, don't worry about it. Désolé, allez direct.
Yes, I love this.
Yeah, well, maybe while we're waiting for Prune to come back, Antoine, you want to chip in on one question, which is, sorry, the fact that private equity has the ability, to impact a very large portion of the economy, given the number of underlying, companies in, kind of unlisted funds portfolios. But which steps could be taken by the financial sponsor, i.e. the funds, to impact a wide array of the economy And if you want, after that question, Prune, we'll go back to your last one.
Sorry. So
Yeah,
yes.
no, I'll let Prune finish her comment.
So sorry, fourth idea is something that I've discovered yesterday, but successful women in leadership positions have a very important role to play to boost diversity. And it is not always the case. I discussed yesterday the diversity subject with two male partners who've been working on the subject for a long time. And they both told me that they have noticed that a lot of successful women in male-dominated worlds like to be the only one of their kind, meaning that these women don't fight for gender diversity, but unconsciously against it. This is the Queen Bee syndrome, le syndrome de la reine des abeilles. And this is a very silent and real obstacle to diversity. And these women have a very important role to play. So that's the fourth thing. 5, middle management sensitization is important because it's useless to have the top management very convinced about diversity if the middle management is not in line with it. So it's something that must not be forgotten. And last idea, sorry if it's long, but I've heard so many interesting things that I wanted to share it with you. The last point is not an idea, but an observation. There are plenty, you've said it before, Antoine, there are plenty of women in private equity. They are simply not in the investment teams. Most of them are in the support teams or corporate service team, as you call it. You have the financial direction of operation, investor relations, etc. But historically, in most of private equity firms, these functions have never had access to partnership positions. So improving the percentage of female partners in private equity firms is not only about recruiting more women in the investment teams, it could also be about making partnership accessible to non-investment function. So I've not taken, you'll notice that I have not talked about quotas in my list, because even though I believe quotas are a good solution in very large organizations, I also believe that they are not appropriate in small companies such as GBs, where you need to have the best person in place at each position all the time, whatever its gender is. So to conclude, just a second, so there are plenty of things that can be done on the subject, because in the end, I don't see any reason why private equity should be dominated by male. I mean, it's not a physical job. The teams can survive to a maternity leave, which is in the end only 3 months. That happens 2 to 3 times in a lifetime. So it's not the end of the world, and this is really something that private equity can deal with. So this is for my this is a result of my survey.
Thank you very much for this survey, indeed.
Happy to contribute, Prune, to your 5th idea as being, a partner and a member of the board. So,
but do you agree with me that it's quite rare?
Sure.
Yeah.
Of course it is. And I think I'm part of it also because I did before. I spent like 12 years in investment, and I think this brings a lot of credibility in my current role today.
Yes, it's true.
We have the same, by the way, at Sofinnova, where, as I mentioned, my chief chief operating officer, Monique Saunier, is also a partner, a managing partner of the firm. So yes, I agree with those comments, Prune, and Sophie. I think maybe Raphael, I'm not sure if we have.
Yeah, can we maybe just spend a minute on very quick response, to the question around the portfolio level in the
yeah, because I told you we are so happy to be fully diverse at the equilibrium, basically 50-50 in our firm. But when I look at the portfolio, we are clearly not there yet. And I think that's another challenge that we need to, that the company as such, male, female partners in their companies, when they, it's not just about the CEO position, but it's the C-suite in general, the CEO, the CTO, the CMO, whatever you call them in the different industries, making sure that the leadership team in our companies have that objectives to be gender diverse. We take responsible investing quite seriously at our firm. So we actually collect this information. When we make an investment, we look at this, we look at these metrics. So it's important to do this. We need to start somewhere, and I think the industry needs to start with itself. But the work, in fact, this is just a sort of a base camp. The rest is everything that we need to do on the portfolio level, making sure that the CEOs and the C-suite of our companies be diverse as our environment is.
Thank you so much. I think we have kind of 4 minutes for questions.
Yes, we have questions.
Do we have some questions from the audience?
Yes. So the first one, could you elaborate on cultural diversity, people with a disability entering PE or VC, and other forms of EDY? To what extent do you invest in? Have you invested in business started by people of color?
Who wants to take that one?
Maybe to say that diversity, indeed, gender diversity is just the first step, and that we need to look at diversity as a whole. And I think the more gender diverse you are, I think the more you are open, or you're demonstrating that you're open to every diversity, be it of color or of sexual preferences, and those are things that certainly in Europe we don't talk much compared to the US. And it's actually more open in the US. I'm not saying they are better than us, but I think that's the first step. So we endeavor to do that, and I think we have. Certainly from the portfolio level, already demonstrated that we are able to bring that diversity, that broad diversity, not just gender, to the portfolio level. So,
does somebody else want to say something, or should we move to the next question? We probably have time for a last question.
Yes.
If there's one.
So what is the risk of not tackling this subject?
Who wants to chip in?
Well, what I can say is, and Raphael says that there is today a strong push from the LPs. So by not tackling this subject, probably, in terms of fundraising, that would be the first step. It would raise question of how, generally speaking, you will manage your human resources. In the 4 recommendations of level 20, first you have data and transparency, because the thing that publishing the number, I think it is a real fact that enables, the private equity firms to do more effort to make sure that this statistic will increase. So it's really a reminder of doing better each year. Then, of course, you have recruitment and outreach. We spoke about that. And then you have retention and progression. So by ignoring that, you're just ignoring, what would be the future.
Well, thank you so much, Sophie. I think we are right on time. So it is very clear that a lot still has to be done regarding diversity in a general manner, and not only gender parity, of course, in this industry. But thanks to all of you, I think we now have a roadmap and a lot of great ideas from Prune and her survey. So thank you so much. Please, join me in thanking Antoine, Sophie, and Prune, and for all the women watching this session. I think we have to remember, don't forget to dare, indeed. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, Raphael.